Okay, now to the dark side, the bad things that I've discovered about Cairns. A lot of it revolves around the apartment again, which may sound strange given that I gave it such a rap. But these are more about administrative things, and it seems something's just out of my control. Number one major irritation would have to be the neighbour upstairs. Now, I mentioned in a previous video I was being reasonably prescient there because I said that having a downstairs apartment could be an issue. It ideally is better to be upstairs because you get the sound from an upstairs apartment. And I've been getting a bit of that in spades. Not every night, it's inconsistent, but it's a very weird situation. The people upstairs, maybe just a single woman or girl with a boyfriend, or maybe she occasionally has a kid there. I don't know. It's a weird living arrangement anyway. But the thing that gets me is that they've got things on wheels, trolleys, like little trolley things. It sounds like it's all tiled upstairs as opposed to my place, which has got carpet in the bedroom. And all the sounds from upstairs seem to go straight through that floor into my apartment. Now, if I'm in my bedroom, for instance, to give you an example, I've got sliding doors in my wardrobes. Now, I think it's an identical situation upstairs. Now, when they slide their doors, I can hear it like it's in my room. It sounds just as strong. So, even though they sound incredibly noisy, I may be being a bit harsh on them in that there seems to be absolutely no insulation between the upper level above me and my level. So I cop all the sound from upstairs. Their floor is my roof, and there's just nothing in between, no airlock or whatever to isolate the sound. So, as I say, they may not be being as noisy as I perceive, but it really is a pain. But it's still pretty weird. I mean, there's no excuse for people rolling things along the floor, on like a roller type thing, up to about 3:30 in the morning. I mean, that's pretty crazy, and it can go on after that as well. I mean, it's virtually all night sometimes. It doesn't happen every night, as I say, but you just don't know when it's going to happen and when you're going to get a nice sleep, when you're going to get a decent sleep. So it's a really painful situation. Now, the other thing that sometimes the other sound that I get is a scraping sound, like dragging furniture across. And again, that can happen at any time of the night. And of course, occasionally they'll get talking, but that's not as bad, to be honest with you. There was a bit of a really loud mobile conversation that took place when I first came in. I complained about that, and they seem to have gone quieting down after that. But it's just a weird lifestyle. I've got no idea what they're doing with it, whether it's just shift work or whatever. But Glenn, who came up here to stay with me for 2 weeks, he just had to leave after 4 nights. He couldn't hack it any longer. He could actually hear the toilet when they were urinating. He could hear it on the bowl. But he's got really, really amazing hearing, obviously. And I was able to sleep okay, but he just could not. He just couldn't hack it at all. He said he just wasn't getting sufficient sleep and had to go somewhere else. So that was very inconvenient for him. For me, it wasn't so bad at that stage, but in the last few days it had flared up again, and I just had to basically alert the real estate agent, and that's where another problem has arisen. If you've got a situation like this, you need support, and unfortunately that just seems to be totally lacking up here. And it may be a Queensland thing, I don't know, but I gave the real estate agent, Cairns Rental Realty, a huge rap, the way I was given lifts to my place and everything, and the way they got the whole thing resolved within 24 hours, so I actually was able to move in. I was wrapped and all that. But since then there have been some issues, and it has been a fairly tardy or lackluster response to the issues that I brought up. And I'm now dealing with it's a husband and wife team, Shane and Jackie. And Jackie is the one I contact via email about issues with the flat. And when I mentioned the noise the second time to her, she said she'd pass it on to Body Corporate. As an owner, I just contacted the Body Corporate directly myself, but apparently the protocol, if you're a renter, is for your agent to contact the body corporate on your behalf. So I've never had any direct contact with them. But on the second occasion I complained about noise, Jackie came back at me and said, well, we can't do anything about it unless it's loud music. Well, that's, unfortunately, I've got to say that's total BS, because I read the guidelines on the body, in the body corporate, and it's about, you know, any intrusive noise. It doesn't specify it's got to be music, and that's just crap, because there's plenty of other noises that can make people's life a hell if it's occurring, say, 24 hours a day when you're normally sleeping. So there's usually curfews involved with all body corporates. I think that's pretty standard, and this is no exception to the rule. So I wasn't happy with the response there. And the other thing where she's been tardy is getting the oven fixed. The oven, I've been in this place for 2 months, and last night was the first time I was able to use the oven. And the only problem with it was that the knobs weren't working. They had the wrong knobs. They were broken. And my point is that this should have been checked out before I even moved in, but it wasn't. And the whole process with the electrician has taken forever. I mean, I've had a double whammy with this particular apartment, where the range top also died on me, so that had to be replaced. So at one stage I had no cooking whatsoever, but the electrician did supply me with a temporary electric hot plates that I could cook on. They weren't anywhere near as good as the permanent ones, but they didn't take too long to replace the other unit. Of course, all parts have to come from another city. I'm not used to this, being a Melbourne boy, where everything's centralised. Here, you have to wait to get stuff from Townsville or elsewhere in many cases. So there's a huge delay with repairs, and it's a real pain in the backside. So you've got to cut them some slack. There is a reason for the Queensland time phenomenon, and this is one of them. However, 2 months is just beyond a joke, and the only reason it hasn't been fixed faster is because obviously the landlord doesn't want to dish out money for a new oven. But unfortunately, because of that, I've had to wait for these replacement knobs for some ridiculous time. 2 months is just not good enough. So I'm pretty unhappy, and was considering maybe going to an appeals tribunal about it, but I'll probably just let it go now. But it'll make me reticent wanting to deal with this particular agency again, in spite of the fact that they were fantastic at the beginning, providing fantastic customer service. Lately they've dropped the ball as far as this is concerned, so the jury's out, really. I wouldn't trust them like I did initially, but it may not be just them. This could be fairly typical of agents here, and especially if you've got tight landlords who aren't going to pay for a new oven. I guess I'd be in that same category if I could avoid it, but given that it's taken so long to get those knobs, I think it's totally unreasonable. And friends I've spoken to say, look, you should. The thing is, what they could have done is they could have offered compensation, because I have been paying for something that hasn't been provided for 2 months. I think at the very least that Cairns rental realty should do is at least offer me some discount on my rent, because why should I pay for a facility that I'm not getting? And it's only because the landlord's tight. So I'm pissed off, and I'll be a good tenant and I'll pay rent on time or what have you, do the right thing, but I just feel like it is a one-way street. And I said that to Jackie, and she just said it's out of her control, which was a total cop-out. So, not impressed in that respect. Now that's one side of the ledger. The other problem here is that the body corporate itself is incredibly slack. So even if Jackie does the right thing and passes on all my issues, and I think she is passing them on, if the body corporate doesn't action my concerns, in other words, if someone's being noisy, they should be given warnings and eventually given the bloody the eviction notice. And my particular neighbour upstairs has also been hanging washing over the balcony, which is a no-no, and done it on 3 occasions. It appears as if either the body corporate's not contacting them, or they're just flaunting the body corporate, or there's a combination. The body corporate isn't actioning those breaches properly and putting her on notice for eviction. In whatever the circumstances are, it's just not good enough. I'm doing the right thing and paying the price. So, you know, it basically it's a bit of a downside here. Those are the major issues: a slack body corporate and probably a real estate agent that's not as responsive as I would have hoped. And of course, I'm not used to being a renter. I haven't done it for years. I've been a homeowner for the last 20 years or so or more, and so, you know, just it is a bit of a learning curve for me. But the other downside I've had here is actually the weather. Even though the weather is fantastic, when it's sunny and warm, it is brilliant. But we had received a lot of rain since I've actually come up here. They say they've had a very dry wet season, and this is supposed to be the dry season. I guess it's just nature compensating, but I've been copping a fair bit of it. And but the last week has been pretty good. But prior to that, we had about 4 days of grey skies in the morning, so it's quite depressing by our standards. Even though it wasn't cold like it is in Melbourne, you do like to see a bit of sun, and we were deprived of that. So maybe I'm just being greedy. The other thing about this, apart from pizzas being expensive, the other thing that's expensive here is electricity, because there's only one provider, and that's Ergon, and people have been pretty pissed off with them up here, and there's no competition, which I don't quite understand why that's the case, because in Cairns there's 150,000 people. Why there's no competition here is beyond me. But you know, again, it's a marginal increase in cost. But I guess if I'm only paying $245 rent a week, I'm still way ahead of the situation in Melbourne, and we'll see how much I'm going to have to use aircon during summer. Hopefully not too much. I'll buy a pedestal fan to augment the ceiling fans, and that might get me through, and maybe occasionally use aircon, but only occasionally, because I know it's going to cost a fortune. So that's pretty well the rundown. Overall, fantastic up here. Glad I made the move. Definitely the way to go. You know, I'd recommend it to anybody who's in my situation. It's certainly, you can save money by moving up here, and of course you're going to get better weather, and socially it's a great place. If you can't meet people here, I don't think you can meet people anywhere. So I give a big thumbs up to the Cairns lifestyle.